Will do.
All right. Okay, we're in 1 Corinthians 9:25. We'll start with Chris, if you would, please.
All right. Pos de ho agonizomenos ponto ekerateu etai ikenoi men un hina thar let's see fartharton Stephanon Lambosin Hemes de Aphartharton. I have but everyone thus striving that's striving in all things controls himself, they indeed then that a perishable crown they might receive, but we in an imperishable one or imperishable crown.
Now, there's two kinds of crowns. Are you aware of that in the Greek? Stephanos and diadema. And Stephanos is what kind of crown? Do you remember?
It's a victor's crown.
Victor's crown. Okay.
Of a race.
Yeah, like in a race.
And I put prize because the crown could be one of the prizes, but it didn't have to be a crown.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't? Is that not a crown always?
I don't think so. But
a garland, honor, glory. Okay.
Now, they do it to receive a corruptible crown. And it's normally for a crown, and I guess it could represent something symbolic, some kind of other reward. But they would weave together leaves off a tree and put them around their head, right? And so he got to wear that around for a day or two, but in a few days, what happened to those leaves that had been branches or like vines that have been twined to make a crown around your head? It goes around circling the head. It's corruptible, so it's going to do what?
It's going to fade away. It's going to rot.
Perish.
Yeah.
Fade away. So, but what's our crown? These runners, these fellows running in a race, what do? They're trying to get that corruptible crown, but what are we striving for?
An imperishable, incorruptible one.
Well, we see a contrast, don't we, here? Ours is much, 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 much greater than theirs, because theirs corrupts, and yet they strive. What English word comes from this agonizomai?
Agony.
Agony. So they go through great pain and agony to try to win this crown, and it's not even near what we're striving for. So what's the message for us?
We need to be striving too.
We should be striving too. And we can see this as a principle of a fortiori principle. They have to exercise self-control in order to win and to focus on their goal, training and running for the race. And but they do it for a corruptible crown when it's going to fade away in a very short time. But we have an incorruptible crown. See, it's the same word. If you look at the two words, you can see both of them, one at the top of the screen, one at the very bottom. The only difference in the words is the alpha privative on the bottom one, which means un. So it's just one is perishable and one is not perishable, unperishable. And Stephanos, I think the word's name Stephen comes from this crown, from this word. But we got an incorruptible crown. Here's my argument right here. If one exercises self-control to take hold of a corruptible crown, then we should exercise self-control to receive an incorruptible crown. probably ought to change that to even more, stronger, greater self-control. So we should exercise self-control to lay hold or take hold of that incorruptible crown. Any questions or comments? Okay. I translated that every man striving in the games exercises self-control of all things. Indeed, therefore, those that do it in order that they may take hold of a corruptible crown, but we do it in order that we may take hold of an incorruptible crown. Notice I put a fair portion there in the italics. I believe it's elliptical that's found there. Right. Any questions or comment? One is a corruptible crown and the other is uncorruptible something, and it makes sense for it to be a crown. So I went ahead and put those in there. James, do you have anything to add there? You want to add?
It made me think of the victor, honeycomb in Revelation.
Of what in Revelation?
Honeycomb, I think it's honeycomb, the victor in
Yeah.
Revelation. Made me think of that.
What do I think of that?
I said it made me think of that.
Oh, okay. Thought you were asking me what I thought of it. Okay. All right. All right, let's go to verse 26. James, could you take that verse for us?
Yes, sir. Ego toinun hutos, treko hos uk, adelos hutos, huk huo hos uk, aira deron. And I translated that accordingly. I run thus, not about aimlessly, thus I box, not as beating air.
And some boxers practice their boxing. They call it shadow boxing, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And so I run, and I run, and I run. The word so in the King James or so in American Standard is hutos, or it's an adverb of manner. Now notice here, the last two letters on hutos, I highlighted them there. They are the ending of the same as an ly adverb in English, an adverb of manner. And truly is an adverb of manner, see, a true manner. Say truly and surely and so forth in English. And the omega sigma os ending is a adverb of manner. And in fact, it's defined as in this manner. But adverbs of this form originally came out of the ablative case. Okay? But they were adjectives that turned into adverbs. Okay? And so they in this manner. Okay? And therefore I so run, and so I'm exerting myself in that race as not uncertainly, certainly not in a way. Now notice it's also an adverb of manner. Notice the ending on it. I'll highlight it right there, os ending. Because of faith, run with certainty, see. So we have something. We can get this reward at the end of the race, and we're not striving against other people. We're striving against a pattern of good versus evil, and all of those that are running it are able to win that race or win it. And it's a race against sin and Satan more than it is against another person. Whereas in a carnal race, you're running against a person. We're running against, because of our faith, see, we're running against error and sin and wrongdoing and Satan. Right, because we run with certainty, we run with confidence, our trust in God. That we'll get this reward if we just are faithful. Then he not only uses the word for running, but he turns in, as a boxer or pugilist, one who boxes. And this word's only found here in the New Testament. And punctuo, and someone who boxes, is not beating there. Now, I think their boxing may have been bare-fisted. But anyhow, you can sure hurt somebody if you're not careful. Right here, what we have here is as beating the air. See, not as a boxer beating the air, probably shadow boxing. And so he said, I'm not just shadow boxing, I'm really boxing. So it says, not uncertainly, so I fight as not beating the air. And it's ooh, and that's denying the facts. It's not may. Not just shadow boxing, I'm really in the fight. I'm not out here just boxing in the air, I'm actually in the arena fighting. So, I know they got some gloves when I was in junior high, and the guys wanted to do some boxing. And so everybody had to put gloves on to box a little bit. And I didn't much care for it. But you can sure get hurt if a guy hits you just wrong. Okay? Hits you like in the nose or something. But these guys were serious about their boxing whenever they're in the Olympic Games and stuff. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I as what not as one that beats the air. I'm out in the arena actually fighting. And of course, this is not a physical fight. This is a figurative fight in the battle with Satan and all that's wrong against error and against sin. And the battle is to convert the lost and to retain those who are saved and keep them in a saved condition. I think that's his great battle. Any comments? Jerry, any?
Yeah.
James, anything you want to add there?
No, I translated the beat as beating since it's a participle, but I understand it can be translated as beat.
Okay.
So I think your translation looks pretty good.
All right. Let's look at the next verse. Jerry didn't have his magnifying glass, so
I think I could do it
he
anyway.
thinks
though.
he can do it. So let's let him see what he can do.
All hupo piazzo mu to soma kai dulagogo me pos alois kerus gus atos adokimos genomai. And I translated it, but instead I also put down, could be, might be one or the other. I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest to others proclaiming I might myself be rejected, or I myself might be rejected.
So he buffets, and this, according to Thayer, means to be black and blue. So you've really taken the beating there. So he buffets his body, see. Right.
But I don't think that's a physical. That's why I did it discipline, because I don't think it's a physical beating. I don't think he.
No, I don't think it's
I mean,
physical.
I know the
I think it's
Muslims do that with that little thing. They
Yeah,
beat themselves over the
Yeah.
back and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
flagellation, they call it.
Yeah.
But he's not talking about that. I think it's a figure of speech, as
And discipline was one of the nuanced words in
Yeah.
in it, so that's why I chose it.
and I think he's following up with the being in the arena. He gets his body beaten up in the process of this going out into the arena in this figure of speech.
Except he's doing it to himself.
Okay.
I just thought it made more sense to people that will read this. You know, discipline is one of those things people don't really have, most of us, that we need more of. And you get that by putting forth a massive effort and exercising that discipline in order to build it up.
Well, that makes sense.
At least that was what was in my mind when I did it that way.
James, you got anything you want to add there?
No, sir.
Chris, how about you? So he brings his body under bondage, or under subjection, and he leads it to bondage. See this, look at this word, and what you have here, and I'm going to break it here so you can see it on the screen. You see ago, to lead, agogeo, and doulo, so doulo is to make a slave out of, subjugate. And so I lead my body into subjection. I lead it away into slavery. Thus, by any means, if may post, this perhaps, say, after I preach to others, I myself might be what?
I put rejected, but
American Standard says rejected. But let's look at this word.
and I put two others proclaiming because it's a participle.
Okay, right here. See, it's adokimos, and it's alpha privative. And I'll move the mouse around, you can see where I have it. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's your alpha privative. And so dokimos is to be approved as coin or metal. You assay it and it's genuine. And so I might become reprobate. Now, what does the Calvinists say about a reprobate person? What do they say?
Can't do anything at all since you're reprobate. You have no ability to affect your spiritual outcome.
That's right. In other words, if you're a reprobate, you're one of those that was destined to be lost. Calvinism. And actually, it's never used that way in the New Testament. It's always someone who's been examined and they didn't measure up. And it wasn't that they couldn't have been doing right, it's just that they didn't do right. And so they're not approved, they're tested and not found to be genuine. It's also translated reprobate. One caused himself to be rejected. Notice here, that said, I should be rejected, and I should be. Now I want you to notice it's
Rejected is middle.
genomai, and what voice is it? I've highlighted it.
Oh, I didn't get it as, I must have looked on the wrong line because I didn't get it as middle.
It's aorist middle.
I got the subjective, but I didn't get the middle.
So it demonstrates he caused himself to be rejected. It's not that he was born that way, but he caused himself by his actions. So he said, it's possible I might be rejected. So I need to continually keep my body in subjection. So this shows that even a faithful person like Paul had to worry about being rejected if he turned away and turned back. So once saved, always saved is shot down, and this being in the middle voice shows that it wasn't inherited. It's something he did to himself, not something done to him. Shuts down both those doctrines, those false doctrines. Now, word is translated reprobate. Note here, the one caused himself to be rejected. And I'll start right here, highlight it just a little bit that you see. The Calvinist appeals to the sovereignty of God to claim that God arbitrarily or unconditionally chooses who is elect and who is reprobate. And this word's found in Romans 1:28. Here are the passages in the middle of the screen where it's found. It's not consistently translated either here in Hebrews 6:8. Calvinistic translators knew if they properly translated it would destroy their possibility of apostasy doctrine. So, when he translated it as rejected, it's the same word translated reprobate elsewhere. The translators didn't want to have that because this is saying I might become reprobate. And I misspelled reprobate. I see that right now. Right down here it's misspelled in my translation. So might become. Now let's go back and look at this. When it said should be, this is from ginomai, to become.
Yeah.
I might cause myself to become reprobate. This is a real strong passage when you look at it in the original against Calvinism. Any comments or questions from anybody? I'll correct my misspelled word down there. Reprobate.
You dyslexic.
I think I just got one letter, one too many letters. That's what I got. I think that's correct now. Is that right?
Yep.
I'll save it. Won't matter because I got it on my master file at home, so I'll have to correct it on that master file. But at least it's on the YouTube file. Okay? So they didn't consistently translate it, and here are all the places it's found. And in Hebrews 6:8, in this passage, they translated it differently. Now, if you go to Hebrews 6:8, you'll see the same problem. Okay. Any question? Okay. Now we're in chapter 10 now. Chapter 10. All right. Now, we got a problem here, James. James, the problem is that Chris has had to be a witness and was called upon to be a witness in a murder trial. Okay. All right.
I could do my best with it, just let everybody help me out with it.
And he hasn't had time to work on this like he wanted to, but he's going to take a stab at it, so we'll help him, okay?
Sounds good.
Ready?
Yes.
All right. Uthelogar, humas, agonoin, adelphoi, hoti, hoi, pateres, hemon, pontes, hupo, ten, nephele, Elaine, Ason, Kai, Pontus, Dia, Tes, Thalassus, Dialathon. Here's not that I wish for you to be ignorant, brothers, that our fathers all were under the cloud and all through the sea passed.
Okay. All passed through the sea, see? And so they all passed.
You have gar instead of day in the third word?
I do.
It's a textual variant.
Oh.
Okay. So I do not wish, do not desire that you would be ignorant, for you to be ignorant. Now this is present infinitive, and so this is a continuous thing, to continue being ignorant. That just means continue not knowing something. And again, many people confuse ignorance with a person being ignorant with a person being stupid, not having very much intellectual ability. Well, now a person who doesn't have much intellectual ability might be ignorant, but it necessarily doesn't mean that all people who are ignorant I don't have much intellectual ability. I know some people who've never studied nuclear physics, but they're geniuses in some other field, okay? Well, they're ignorant of nuclear physics, okay? So that doesn't mean that I had a friend that's a mathematician, PhD in mathematics, and he's pretty brilliant. We went to high school together. We graduated together, and he and I are good friends. But I think he had general physics is all he had in college, and he just took math, not a math major. I think we've talked about that a little bit. And yet he's a brilliant person and very intelligent. He's written several books. So that doesn't mean that you just don't know, see. And it might be that you have the ability to know, but you haven't learned it. And we notice the difference between the aorist and present infinitive here. This is present infinitive. And so this is something that's habitually being done, staying ignorant. If it were an aorist, he wouldn't want them to right now be ignorant, and they could get over it pretty quickly. But here they're in a state of ignorance. They're continuing in that state because of the present infinitive. Now, Dana and Manny in the middle of the screen talks about some infinitives, and in contrast, pistu psi, aorist infinitive, and I put that in there, I added that. And pistu ain, that's the present infinitive, I added that to it too. So that in the parentheses is what I've added to the quote, okay, so keep that in mind. And the luain, that's present infinitive, to be a slave, and the lusai is aorist infinitive to render service. You can do one act of service, and if it becomes a present infinitive, you become a slave. You're continually doing that action. See the difference? And so that's the difference here. Sin, hamartain, aorist infinitive. To commit a sin, hamarteion, present infinitive, and that's to be a sinner, one who keeps on sinning, makes it a practice, makes it a habit. So the difference between being a sinner and being someone who sins. Now, sin will cause us to be lost, but a sinner's given over to it. He's devoted to it. Right? Any comments there? Right. So these two are contrasted by Dana and Manny. Now, Robertson says the present infinitive can be assumed to be durative. The matter has had some discussion in connection with the aorist infinitive punctiliar, but he gives a few extra examples. If you have his big grammar, it's about 1,400 pages long. It's pretty thick. And it's out on the internet. You can actually get an electronic copy of it, I believe. But it's page 890, and I think he has a few more examples on page 890. I just didn't include them in this right here. That our fathers, now he's talking about those who came out of Egypt. They were all under the cloud, and that's when they passed through the Red Sea, and all passed through the sea. And notice this word here, and I'll break it here. It's erchomai, or dia. The alpha got dropped off. Dia is through, and so they went through or passed through the Red Sea. And dia is the alpha got dropped off of it. Any questions there? Erchomai is to come or go, and go through the sea, and we don't tell what sea it is, but it's the Red Sea. Now let me point out here that the Red Sea, if you study it, is I believe the Gulf of Aqaba. I don't think it's what is called the Red Sea today. And the reason I take this is the term Red Sea is mentioned as being Ezion Geber is on the Red Sea according to the New Testament, according to the Old Testament in two passages. Ezion Geber is at the north end of the Gulf of Aqaba. And Edom had his land on the east side of the Red Sea. So some think it's, and Edom means red. And so Edom, the Edomites, that was their shore. And I believe it's Edom Sea. And that's why it was called that. Also, Mount Sinai, according to Galatians, is in Arabia. And the so-called Sinai Peninsula today was never part of Arabia, as far as we know. Okay. So
Do you think the name originated from Edom's Red Sea?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. Now, was that all considered Red Sea at one point? When did they make a division?
I think just the Gulf of Aqaba was Edom Sea.
Just that part of it. Well, and we don't know what the other one. We know what
The Bible doesn't call the other part what's called the Gulf of Suez.
Okay.
And it's never called that. That is never called Red Sea in the Bible.
Okay.
That over there. And besides, that Gulf of Suez has precipitous drops. You go into it just a little ways and it drops down like 500, 600, 700 feet down into the water, like cliffs. And there's at the north end of it, there's a place that children could have gone across. But I think that there's some real solid, hard evidence that it's Gulf of Aqaba. And Mount Sinai is actually in Arabia, according to the Galatians.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know that's scripture. So
Sure.
I would put it on the East Bank.
Yeah. Well, I like that you have scriptural references for that, for those. But Edom Sea makes sense, meaning that it was red.
There's a fellow, his name is Rudd, R-U-D-D. I've got a book, and I've never met him, but he and I've talked on the phone many times. He's from Canada. He's a member of the church, and he's written, he's kind of like an archaeologist, and he's really done some good work on some of this. And I've got his book, and his book is, it's a big, thick book on this. And I think I had to pay like $120 to get it or something, but it's very thorough, very, very thorough. I hadn't even been through it all. I just gone through pieces of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know his work, and I'm satisfied it's probably very thorough.
Mm-hmm.
But he argues that the Gulf of Aqaba is the Red Sea. And he did archaeological studies. He's Canadian, so they'd let him in and not give him too much trouble. If he were a United States citizen, he'd have trouble
Okay.
getting in over there. So he's been around over there. Anyhow, Steve, I think it's Steve Rudd or Stephen. I can't remember. I can't remember whether it's Steve or Stephen. But I've got I've cited him in some of my other works. Yeah. Do you know if Brother Rudd is Stephen or Steve? What do you know? James, do you know who I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about, but I am not sure when you made that statement, which it is.
Yeah, I think it's Steve, but it might be Stephen. All right, I'll have to look it up. Okay. I translated it, for I would not, brethren, have you to be ignorant that our fathers were all under the cloud and all passed through the sea, and that would be the Red Sea, as it's called. Now, those skeptics try to say it's a sea of reeds, and that there was and the Egyptian chariots just got bogged down in the mud. Okay, go ahead, Jerry.
Well, I just wanted to read mine and see if I'm translating or went too far with it. It's not translation anymore. I put, also, it is not my will for you to not understand, brethren, that our fathers were all under the cloud and all passed through the sea. That last part's okay, but the first part,
not my will.
It is not my will for you to not understand, instead of, well, I wanted to make sure people would understand it, because, as you've mentioned many times, I used what the word, how it would be used in English rather than how the hard definition of the word.
Yeah.
Which might be not a translation anymore, but it might be
Well, it means to not to understand or not to know. That's all it means. And so I would not have you be ignorant. I don't want you to be lack understanding, and I don't think you mistranslated it. Translated it that way, right? And notice in the middle of the screen here, agneo, and if you break it here, it's broken here, you're off a privative there, see?
Yeah, to not know.
And that's to not know, to be ignorant, to be lack understanding, see? Noeo is to know, so to not know, see, I don't know or don't understand. Have lack of understanding. How did you render that now?
It is not my will for you to not understand.
All right. And I don't think there's anything. Go ahead, James.
Well, I didn't say anything, but I did look it up. Steve or Stephen Rude, it would be accurate.
Both?
Both are being used in reference to him.
Okay. His name may be Stephen, but he may go by Steve in the shortened form.
That's what I think is the case.
All right. Okay. I've talked to him on the phone. He seemed like a real fine gentleman, fine Christian man to me. But we visited on the phone several times and by email, even about the letters. Okay. I would not rather have you to be ignorant, to lack understanding, to not have understanding about this matter. So they all were under the cloud and all passed through the sea. And what else? Next verse, if you would. Chris, did you read last? James, could you take verse 2 for us?
Yes, sir. Kai pantes eston mousein ebaptisanto ente nephele kai ente thalasse. And I translated that a little differently than all the translations I looked at. I translated it, and all baptized themselves into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, rather than and all were baptized. I translated it as middle. The word ebaptisanto is middle voice.
Of course, they could have caused themselves to be baptized by having faith to go between that wall of water on both
Yeah,
sides.
you had to take that step.
That's why I lean to the and all baptized themselves into Moses.
Yeah.
They had to make the crossing.
And so that being the middle voice, it tells you, and I think that they had to do it themselves. And I think that's a good point, right? And we're all baptized, or they all caused themselves to be baptized into Moses. So this is another kind of baptism. Can you think of all the baptisms in the Bible? There's a baptism unto Moses here. Can you think of other baptisms?
Well, there's baptism in fire,
Baptism in fire, okay.
in the Holy Spirit.
Baptism in the Spirit or with the Spirit. And then there's
Baptism, 1 Corinthians 15.
Yeah. And there was a baptism there where they were baptized for the dead. Then there's the Great Commission baptism. And then there's a limited commission baptism before the cross. And John's baptism was, I think, limited, and John's baptism, I think, was the same. Baptism of suffering, who went through that?
Well, Jesus and all the apostles.
Jesus, and he said that the apostles would do it too. So baptism of suffering. See? So the term baptism is used in a lot of different ways. There may be another way or two that I've missed. Any questions or comments there? So they were baptized under Moses in the cloud and the sea. Now, what does the word baptized mean?
Immersed or covered up.
Right? It means to be dipped or covered, enveloped. And so they had water on both sides and above them in the cloud. I think it was probably a dense cloud. And I think they could probably see the ground in front of them. but the cloud just covered them. Now, I don't see the children of Israel coming out. The cloud covered them in the daytime and the fire was at night. You know what? I think sometimes we may have missed some of the beauty of that. Out in the desert, you're out in that sun, there's no clouds out there, it gets hotter than a pistol. James, you go to Arizona, but you go in the winter, don't you?
That's right.
It gets.
I'm not there when it's 115.
And so, but you see, God put the clouds over them when they were traveling in the daytime to keep them comfortable. He's just taking care of them by giving them water and food. Their clothing doesn't wear out and they're protected.
Wasn't part of the time the cloud behind them too?
And what it went before them, and the pillar of fire would be there at night. And
Yeah,
the
but I thought-
desert can get very cold at night, you know. So we'd have to study it more, but I think there's stuff that we might be missing there that God's care for them.
I think when they crossed the sea,
Missing that.
the cloud was over them. Obviously, it has to have been.
Yeah.
But I thought it moved around behind them to block the view of the Egyptians as they were closing in.
Yeah.
Am
I
I
think it
remembering
did.
that wrong?
I think it did. If you saw the movie Ten Commandments, that's what happened.
Yeah, but I haven't watched that. Just from reading.
But I think that's really what happened. I really do. I think I've checked out the Ten Commandments.
And I think it just covered over the whole thing so that when the Egyptians got there, they didn't see what was going on. And so whenever the cloud moved on and the people, they just charged right on after them and didn't get to see the water separate and get to realize what was going to happen.
Yeah. But you see, I have in my notes down there in the middle of it, of the screen, I said, note that the word baptisanto is in the middle voice. This means that they were doing something that was either for their benefit or they did to themselves.
So chose to become baptized? Is
Yeah,
that sort of middle or is that
I went
not?
ahead and translated we're all baptized, but I really need to really think about it real hard, like James has done, okay? Right?
Baptized unto Moses, I put according to Moses, because I thought it was Moses' instruction to them to do it. And so that's why they did it.
But it's ace, it's to or toward or with a view to Moses.
Yeah, and that's how, because I thought Moses told them to do it, so because of that, Moses' instruction made them go. He said, when I hold up the staff, you go.
It's possible. I think Moses went to the other side and the people came and he stood there and they could see him. And they're
Oh.
going toward Moses.
Oh, I thought he
Oh,
was
they
on,
went to
I thought
the-
he stayed on the other side until. All right, read that again.
I think he did.
I agree with Jerry. I thought he did as well because God said, what are you waiting for? Tell the people to move forward. So I took it to be that he was there with the people.
Well, I think he led them. I think he went to the other side and stood
Oh, that could be. Yeah.
and was on the east bank and stood there and the people could see him.
Yeah. Once God gave him that instruction that he may indeed have moved forward.
Yeah.
Rather than signal to people.
And so they're going toward him unto Moses. So they caused themselves to be baptized by going toward Moses. That's, I don't know, I might need to work on how we translate that. That's a little better. They caused themselves to be baptized by going toward Moses, or in the cloud and in the sea. Now, in could be by means of, could be an instrumental case. So the baptism was by means of the cloud and by means of the sea. How does King James do that? Let's see here. And yeah, the King James has in also, so does American Standard. Do you have any translations that translate it by the cloud?
I don't have any.
So that would make it not passive. They'd make it, they'd make it passive.
I've got 7 translations I'm looking at, and all of them do not have by, but in the translation.
And so it was, and there's nothing wrong with in the cloud and in the sea, but the baptism, I think, is an antitype of the type of the baptism that we go through.
Right.
Egypt
All these things are, I
represents
think.
sin, and when they pass through, their safety. They're safe from being destroyed by the enemy, and we are safe from being destroyed by Satan, at least at this time when we're baptized. At that point, we are. And we may slip back, but I think I see it as a type antitype. Okay. Any comments?
Well, all these things are type antitypes, and he tells us that a little later.
All right. Now then, let's go with verse 3, and then we'll stop. Okay.
I think it's me again.
Can you do that?
Kai, Pontes, To, Ato, Broma, Pneumatico, Iphagon. And I put, and all ate the same spiritual food. Oh, I put same twice. We need 2 sames. All ate the same spiritual food. And all these have commas because they're all the same sentence. They're just,
No.
or semicolons.
Now, what was the manna? What did the manna represent?
I think it represented, well, in this case, it's going to represent the word, the teaching.
In John 6, verse 30 through 51, what did Jesus say?
He was
He's the
the
manna.
manna and the water.
In a spiritual
drink.
sense, they ate of him. They ate of that manna. That's that spiritual food.
And he was like the rock that the water came out of for them.
Yeah, I think he represented the rock.
Oh, that's the next one. Never mind. I'm not there yet.
Y'all want to do verse 4 or just wait till next week to do it?
Oh, we got 3 minutes.
Okay, we got 3 minutes. Chris, do you want to take a stab at it? I know you're.
Yeah, I'll do what I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I can fix it. Oh, wow, it's big.
Verse 4.
All right. Kai, Pontes, Toa, Tu, Pneumatic, see, Pneumaticon, Ipon, Poma, Epinon, Agar, Ek, Pneumatikes, Akaloluthesis, Petros, He, Petra, De, En Ho Christos. And all the same spiritual drink they were drinking, for from the spiritual accompanying rock, the rock then was the Christ.
Okay, they drank of the same spiritual drink and the same spiritual rock. They drank of it. And
What is the following? That one confused me up. For they drink out of the following rock, or they drink out of following the rock. I couldn't figure out what following.
I think it's the rock that's
Because
followed.
the following here is as a disciple follows.
Now, is it possible that the same rock actually moved and water came out of it and it moved from one place to another?
I don't know.
I've never heard of such
I
a
hadn't
thing.
even thought of that.
Well,
God could have done it that way.
yeah, because that's a strange following. That's I think the word for being a disciple. As
Yeah, it's to join one as a disciple, a spiritual rock that followed him. Right? It's the rock that followed him. them. All right?
Yeah, but I don't think it was like following after them. It was, well, it could have been, because it may, if it was a part of God's plan to have them provided for them. But that's just confusing. I never could figure out how to translate that.
Yeah, and it's,
Well, the rock that followed, go ahead, I'm sorry, James, go ahead.
no, I'm not sure that what is the spiritual drink in this case? I guess I'll ask the fundamental question. It says they all drank the same spiritual drink.
I think it's the same as the food. Jesus told the woman that I have drink that you know not of, or I have drink that would, if you knew who it was that asked you, you would want everlasting drink. But that's all referring to the information he provided of eternal life.
Well,
I think
they're drinking the actual physical water, and it represents,
yeah,
yes.
they were drinking the physical water,
Yeah.
but what it really refers to.
And the manna, they ate the literal manna, and it represented Christ. And so does the water represent his word? Or
That's what I understood.
so they drank out of the rock. Notice, let's go back and look at it. It's ek, it's
it's out of.
case. So that's spiritual, that the drink was out of that spiritual rock.
Well, out of the following rock.
And that followed them. Okay.
They're drinking from Christ.
And see, that followed. And the word them is actually not in the verse that followed. And it could be that it's referring to Jesus as the rock, and he followed later, that one that would come in the New Testament times, the antitype.
Oh,
I notice on the screen here, and then we'll end with this verse. God gave the children of Israel water from the rock, and I gave them all the passages. It's plain that both the manna and the rock represented Jesus, probably in the type-antitype relationship. Some have claimed that Jesus is the angel of God that fallen behind Israel. I'm not sure that's true, but some claim it is. Exodus 14:9. See, the word them really should be in italics here rather than in bold, because there's no them there in it. So the rock that followed is Christ. Maybe even the word them shouldn't even be there. Okay.
Yeah, I did not have it in my translation.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's right.
But there's nothing in the Greek text for the word them. It's just not there.
yeah, I put originally out of the following rock, but then I couldn't figure out, well, exactly what does that mean?
Well, if Jesus is the rock, he followed later, and he's the antitype that followed. The antitype always follows the type.
And it's a following rock because it is a participle.
All right. It's a present participle. It doesn't have the article, so it might be a following rock. That would be an
Yeah, the I added.
adjectival participle.
Yeah.
That uses an adjective. Okay. We'll look at this next week. Let's do this some more on this. Come back and look at it. I might have to do some reworking on this. Okay. All right, gentlemen, we're through for tonight. Let me stop the recording.